Welcome back, everybody. Anthony here. It is Thursday, September 18th, 2025 at approximately 1:24 p.m. Eastern Time. I'm going to read not the introduction, but the first section of this book on the description of Jerusalem in Jesus's time. That's the few pages we're going to look at today. And I want you to get a feel for what is being said here. So when we move into the prophecies that Messiah made, you'll get a better understanding just how grand, how spectacular of a place this was, this area, this section of Jerusalem, the temple, the walls surrounding it, what went into it, what they consisted of. This opening gives us a glimpse of that. And it's really amazing when you think about it. And so I'll get started. Of the prophecies which have already been fulfilled, few are so interesting or so striking in their accomplishment as those which relate to the destruction of Jerusalem and its temple, and the signal calamities which everywhere befell the Jewish nation. The chief of our Lord's predictions relative to these events are contained in Matthew 24, Mark 13, Luke 21. And we may with confidence appeal to the facts which verify them as conclusive and incontrovertible proofs of the divinity of his mission. Before, however, we enter upon this illustration, it may be gratifying to the reader and add considerably to the interest of many of the subsequent pages to give in this place a brief description of that renowned city and its temple. Jerusalem was built on two mountains. 3 sets of celebrated walls surrounded the city on every side, except that which was deemed inaccessible, and there it was defended by one wall only. The most ancient of these walls was remarkable for its great strength, and was moreover erected on a hanging rock and fortified by 60 towers. On the middle wall there were 14 towers only, but on the third, which was also distinguished by the extraordinary merit of its architecture, there was no less than 90 towers. The celebrated tower of Stephanos, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, before which Titus is the Roman general, first encamped. So that's where Titus first encamped, by that tower of Stephanos, was erected on this latter wall, and even excelled in its superior style of its architecture. It was 70 cubits or 105 feet high, and had 8 angles, of which commanded most extensive and beautiful prospects. In clear weather, the spectator had from them a view of the Mediterranean Sea, of Arabia, and of the whole extent of the Jewish dominions. Besides this, there were 3 other towers of great magnitude, named Hippocus, Phazel, and Mariami. The 2 former, famed for their strength and grandeur, were nearly 90 cubits, 135 feet high. The latter, for its valuable curiosities, beauty, and elegance, was about 55 cubits, or 83 feet. They were all built of white marble, and so exquisite was the workmanship that each of them appeared as if it had been hewn out of an immense single block of it. Notwithstanding their great elevation, they yet must have appeared from the surrounding country far loftier than they really were. The old wall, it has been just remarked, was built upon a high rock, but these towers were erected upon the top of a hill, the summit of which was itself 30 cubits or 45 feet above the top of the old wall. Such edifices, so situated, it is easy to conceive, must have been given to the city a very great degree of grandeur and magnificence. So you're starting to get the picture of what this immense structure and structures within it looked like. Not far distant from these towers stood the royal palace, of singular beauty and elegance. Its pillars, its porticos, its galleries, its apartments were all incredibly costly, splendid, and superb, while the groves, gardens, walks, fountains, and aqueducts with which it was encompassed formed the richest and most delightful scenery that can possibly be imagined. The situation of these structures was on the north side of Jerusalem. Its celebrated temple and the strong fort of Antonia were on the east side and directly opposite to the Mount of Olives. So the temple itself was directly opposite the Mount of Olives. So the picture that Messiah was talking to his disciples, he was looking from the east, from the Mount of Olives, towards the temple when he was making his prophecies and telling what was going to take place in the future. This fort was built on a rock 50 cubits or 75 feet in height, and so steep as to be inaccessible on every side. And to render it still more so, it was faced with thin slabs of marble, which, being slippery, proved at once a defense and an ornament. So the marble was not only a beautiful, ornate structure, but it aided in the defense because it made the walls so slippery it was nearly impossible to, climb up or to try to scale over. In the midst of the fort stood the castle of Antonia, the interior parts of which, for grandeur, state, and convenience, resembled more of a palace than a fortress. Viewed from a distance, it had the appearance of a tower encompassed by 4 other towers, situated at the 4 angles of a square. Of these latter, 3 were 50 cubits, 75 feet high, and the 4th 70 cubits, or 135 feet. The tower, last mentioned, commanded an excellent view of the whole temple, the riches, grandeur, and elegance of which it is not in the power of language to describe. Whether we consider its architecture, its dimensions, its magnificence, its splendor, or the sacred purpose to which it was dedicated, it must equally be regarded as the most astonishing fabric that was ever constructed. It was erected partly on solid rock, which was originally steep on every side. The foundations of what was called the lower temple were 300 cubits or 450 feet in depth, and the stones of which they were composed more than 60 feet in length, while the superstructure contained of the whitest marble, stones nearly 68 feet long, more than 7 feet high, and 9 broad. The circuit of the whole building was 4 furlongs, its height 100 cubits or 150 feet. 160 pillars, each 27 feet high, ornamented and sustained the immense and ponderous edifice. In the front, spacious and lofty galleries, wainscoted with cedar, were supported by columns of white marble in uniform rows. In short, says Josephus was a Jewish historian of the time, nothing could surpass even the exterior of this temple for its elegant and curious workmanship. It was adorned with solid plates of gold that rivaled the beauty of the rising sun and were scarcely less dazzling to the eye than the beams of that luminary. Of those parts of the building which were not gilt, when viewed from a distance, some, says he, appeared like pillars of snow, and some like mountains of white marble. The splendor of the interior parts of the temple corresponded with its external magnificence. It was decorated and enriched by everything that was costly, elegant, and superb. Religious donations and offerings had poured into this wonderful repository of precious stores from every part of the world during many successive ages. In the lower temple were placed those sacred curiosities, the 7-branch candlestick of pure gold, the table for showbread, the altar of incense, the 2 latter of which were covered with plates of the same metal. In the sanctuary were several doors, 55 cubits or 83 feet high. Picture a door, one door 83 feet high, and 16 or 24 feet in breadth, which all likewise of gold. It's unimaginable what this must have looked like. Before these doors hung a veil of the most beautiful Babylonian tapestry, composed of scarlet, blue, and purple, exquisitely interwoven and wrought up to the highest degree of art. From the top of the ceiling depended branches and leaves of vines and large clusters of grapes hanging down 5 or 6 feet, all of gold and most admirable workmanship. In addition to these proofs of splendor and riches of the temple, may be noticed its eastern gate of pure Corinthian brass, more esteemed even than the precious metals, the golden folding doors of the chambers, the beautiful carved work, gilding, and painting of the galleries, golden vessels of the sanctuary, the sacerdotal vestments of scarlet, violet, and purple, the vast wealth of treasury, abundance of precious stones, and immense quantities of all kinds of costly spices and perfumes. In short, the most valuable and sumptuous of whatever nature of or art or opulence could supply was enclosed within the consecrated walls of this magnificent and venerable edifice. So much concerning this celebrated city and its still more celebrated people, we shall now consider our Lord's prophecies relating to their destruction. So, this section of the reading that I'm going to do today in this video was to just give us, and when I read this for the first time a day or so ago, I was blown away. And when I saw the video of the actual battle, and I'll post it again, I'll post a link to it, it's on YouTube. The battle and the siege shows a depiction of the military aspects of it, but you could get a view or a little bit of a scale of what was the whole city, this Jerusalem, the walls, how it was situated, because it shows you that in the video. And I think it's important to know this. And so in the next video, we'll talk about and start discussing what exactly Messiah said when he said to his disciples in that day what they would be seeing in the near future. Because nothing in the scriptures, according to Luke 21, Matthew 24, Mark 13, would give the reader any kind of inclination that Jesus, that Messiah, was talking about something to happen 2,000 or 3,000 years future. And you'll see that when we go over the language that he used and the words that he chose to say to them. Because if he wasn't talking to them about their particular generation and what they would see and what he would do, then he's a liar, because it didn't happen. It didn't happen, and it still hasn't happened. So what are these apostles? Are they still waiting? Are they 2,000 or 3,000 years old, waiting at the door, knocking? Hey, Jesus, you told us this was going to happen and that was going to happen, and it hasn't happened yet. And we'll see when we read and look closer what exactly Messiah said. So I hope this begins to give you some insight, and feel free to get the book. I think it's worth it. Watch the video, and there's other videos as well. But I want us to get thinking and feeling just how splendid and beautiful this whole city was, including the temple and everything associated with it. Okay, thanks for watching. Anthony signing off. Yah bless.